Hi, everybody. Welcome. We are about to start our PRATT Chat, the first for 2021. For those who don't know me, my name is Joanne Briggs. I am the Vice President of the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago. So let me give you a little explanation about PRATT Chat. PRATT Chat is an opportunity for communicators, practitioners in public relations to join, meet together, and discuss some of the issues that we are dealing with within our industry. And today we are going to talk about virtual reality, virtual meetings, anything that has to do with virtual, because as of last year, when we were faced with COVID-19 and the reality that we cannot have that face-to-face exchange, we had to just find a different way or find a different platform by which to communicate. And here we are. Because look where I am. We're not even in a face-to-face environment. We are online. So to introduce, I would just like to welcome all members of PRATT as well as newcomers to PRATT Chat. And before we move forward, I would like to introduce our President, Sharon Farrell, to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first PRATT Chat for 2021 as we explore the very interesting topics of is virtually our new reality. As professionals, we all have had to change how we deliver on our products and our services. This PRATT Chat is intended to give us a little insight into events and the new normal. So I welcome you to sit back and enjoy our PRATT Chat for 2021.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So we are about to start with our first speaker, Tisha Jack. Now, Tisha is well known to some of us because she's known for her corporate events behind the scenes. And now she has taken a platform to do virtual events. And what we are going to discuss with Tisha, she has a presentation for 10 minutes or less. She's going to try to explain to us what is exactly virtual. So Tisha, take it away.
Thanks, Joanne. Hi, good evening, everyone. So as Joanne mentioned, my name is Tisha, and I am the lead event manager at TCJ Events. And just as Joanne said, we were definitely hit very hard when COVID happened back in March last year. And it was very important for me to find a way to still service our clients. So I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this very dynamic panel and share with what we have learned so far diving deep into virtual events. So the million-dollar question has been, what exactly is a virtual event, right? So a virtual event is any event where all of your attendees or all of your attendees are online, right? Everyone is joining these days from home, from their office, and once you are hosting an event and your attendees are not going to be in person, you are officially hosting a virtual event. Now, are there categories of virtual events? We've all been inundated with the term webinar. So is there a differentiation between a webinar and a virtual event? A webinar is actually one form of a virtual event, because with a webinar, of course, everyone is online, but a webinar is basically geared at sharing information. It's the web version of what we would have called a seminar, an in-person seminar. So there's a reason why the term is like that. Apart from that, what we have seen a lot happen since then, as well as what we will categorize as live streams. A live stream is basically something that is happening in one location, and your audience again is viewing virtually. Right? So we've seen everybody went live when COVID hit. So we had the Instagram streams, we had the Facebook streams. So anything where the term stream, and I'm sure Kenny's gonna get into this because he's the technical mind in our panel, but a stream is basically how you're transmitting the information virtually or online for everyone, right? And then the last one, which we might have heard a lot of, is a broadcast. And a broadcast is basically a one-way view of an event. You don't necessarily have persons in the room where the event is taking place, but you have a lot of your persons viewing virtually or online, right? So we just want to differentiate those things and not get too technical to help us kind of get deeper and to help everyone warm up a little bit more in terms of what a virtual event is. As far as I am concerned, anything that we have done in person can now be done virtually. We just have to get a little creative. We just have to find ways of getting this information across. So what are my key success factors or the key things when you're beginning or even considering planning a virtual event? The first thing is, as with even if you are doing a face-to-face event, is to be very clear on your objectives. Why are you even trying to do an event in the first place, right? So for some of us, we've gone deep into webinars because we want to share information. We're trying to attract an audience. We're trying to reach our audience and share this information with them. All right. So we have to be really clear. If one of your objectives is to make money, you have to be clear on that, because then you have to understand what systems or what processes you need to put in place to actually make money coming out of the event, right? So it's very important to be clear on what you're doing, because then that is going to determine what happens as you continue to plan. So the next key factor is to be very clear on your audience. Who are the people you are trying to target for this event? Where are these people located? All right. Now that we've gone virtual, your audience is not necessarily going to be local, right? Or is this a company event where your audience is predominantly your staff, right? So you have to be clear on who your audience is, because then this is going to direct how you're going to do your marketing or how you're going to reach this audience. This is going to direct how you actually craft the content to reach this audience, right? We all know if you're targeting teenagers versus a mature audience, the way that you deliver the information has to be a little different. So one, be clear on your objectives. Secondly, be clear on your audience. The third thing is to focus on your content. Your content, unfortunately, now that we're virtual, is pretty much what is coming through the screen. What do you want people to take away? What do you want persons to walk away with? What information are you trying to share? What experience are you trying to create? If this is an event, if one of your objectives is mainly entertainment, then what content do you need to put together to make this entertaining? Music, sound, right? Depending on your content now, this is now going to direct what you need to have in place. If you're doing a webinar, you can probably flip up your laptop, flip up your phone, go live, and you're fine. If you're doing something where you have persons performing, your setup is going to be a little more intricate, right? So what content, what experience are you trying to bring forward in your event? You have to be very clear on that, because that in my case, what I find myself asking a lot of clients is, what is on your agenda? Because so far we've done a lot of conferences and AGMs and that kind of thing. So what is your agenda? Because then we have to know how we're going to put this together to make it as engaging as possible. And that is my fourth thing. Focus on keeping your audience engaged. At the end of the day, all we have is the screen. So whatever you put into the screen is what's going to prevent us from taking a bathroom break or encouraging us to be like, this might be a good time to go get something and come back, right? So whatever you put into your program, into your agenda, this is what is going to come through, right? If you're having speakers, not everyone who is great in person is going to translate well on screen. So there are a lot of factors like that you have to put into place. What can you do in your event that can keep persons engaged? We've seen our Instagram feeds and our Instagram lives, and Facebook chats. Sometimes the entertainment is in the chat section. So don't underestimate the chat section of your event to actually keep people engaged. Your audience might entertain themselves in there, but somebody always has to start the conversation, right? So you have to create games or some kind of activity, break the monotony a little bit in terms of what you get them to actively participate in. Again, as I said, whatever you're doing, the screen is all we have for whatever you're doing to create that experience has to be something that keeps us engaged, that keeps us entertained, that makes us not want to get up from our seats and move away, right? So now that we're clear on our objectives, we're clear on our audience, we know what content we want to deliver, and we kind of have an idea of how we're going to keep persons engaged during this process. What factors or what are the main inputs in delivering a virtual event? And in a nutshell, that's pretty much camera or visual and audio. The extent to which this goes now depends on your event. So as I mentioned earlier, right now we're on Zoom. So most of us are on a laptop or on our phone and we're coming to you live, right? So depending on the nature of your event, it could be as simple as this, right? But in doing that, there are little tips and tricks that we try to do, right? So before us coming live today, we would have had a prep call on Wednesday to go through, and they would have made sure that our audio sounds good, our visual looks good. Because again, the visual, this is what we have to keep you guys here, right? So your camera, if you're going live on your phone, wipe your camera lens. It helps, you wouldn't believe the little difference that makes in terms of bringing a clean delivery, right? If you are, if your laptop is not good, it'd be always advised to have a microphone. So you might have seen persons going live and have these fancy mics. They're not that fancy. Radio Shack has them, Amazon has them, right? But microphones definitely help to boost the audio, right? You might see us with headsets. Normally I have on my headset, but I made sure that my audio check was fine, so I don't have it on, right? So your camera and your audio are the main factors. The nature of your event now will decide if you need to get a whole crew. Like Kenny has something happening behind him when he comes live, you will see. So you need to really determine if you need to get all fancy and technical like that, or if you just need to go simple. Another simple trick, if you have a camera, an actual Canon or one of those, you can connect those to your laptop. They actually help improve your visual. So, I mean, we're going virtual, we are all learning, and we just want to find a way, and we're hoping that today is going to, help elevate the experiences that we all have to do, because COVID is not going anywhere. We're not going to be able to gather any large numbers that we would like to anytime soon, and we just want to make sure that we can, still achieve our goals and objectives. So with everything, what is the risk involved? I'm sorry, Colin, but my caveat is always the internet. Now that we've gone virtual, the internet is Murphy's kingpin. So there are little things that we do. You want to make sure that your internet is as best as you can possibly as best as you can possibly have it, right? So simple tips in terms of plugging directly into your modem, if you can. If you can't, try to be in the same room as the router, right? You want to try to want you to have the best experience if you're a speaker. But if you are the one doing the stream, please do not try to put on your event via Wi-Fi, right? It is always best to have a direct connection. If you bring in a production crew, they are going to ask you for internet, and they want direct internet straight into the modem of the provider. And we can get technical and start talking uploads and download speeds and bandwidth, but you always, if you're bringing in our crew, they'll be able to guide you as what exactly is the speed. Right now, we're all running, most persons are running 75 to 100 megs in your home. So if you go to a venue to stream, or you're streaming somewhere outside and you have less than that, it's a red flag. I've had to have these conversations over and over, right? So don't let anybody try to tell you that you need to have proper bandwidth to be able to stream, right? And then the last thing I like to add as the other major risk is boring content. People are going to click in and click out. It's actually easier to turn off a screen now than to sneak out of a room, right? So if you're not keeping people engaged, then it's very easy for them to leave, right? So your internet and boring content, I think, are the two biggest risks when you decide to go virtual. So you want to make sure to mitigate these risks as best as you possibly can. So virtual events are not theory, they are the way forward, right? We have to find ways of getting events done. I totally miss being in a room full of people, but somehow we've found a different adrenaline rush when we say we're about to go live, right? And as Joanne mentioned, I work with a lot of corporate companies. And at the end of the day, your goals and your objectives are not going anywhere. You still have KPIs to meet. You still have returns on investment to try to maximize, right? So the thing with virtual events is that one of the things you can actually, they actually can bring you greater return on a greater return on investment, right? So things like being able to measure how many attendees are actually watching or viewing or attending real time. You can get out with the click of a button. How many persons stayed live? How many persons left? How, if you have sponsors, your sponsors want to know, okay, what is in it for me? How many persons visited my booth, right? We can get technical, and I'm mindful of time. So if we have time, I can always jump into this. But the platform that you choose to deliver your virtual events on doesn't always have to be Zoom. Zoom gives its own metrics. So you can run reports at the end of Zoom, and that's how you measure if your events make sense. So going back to your objective, was your objective to land a certain amount of persons? Your reports are able to do this. Sometimes these things are a little harder to get if you are actually in person, right? So one of these things that you always have to be cognizant, and I should have mentioned this at the top, so I'll stick it in here, is to consider the platform in which you are going to do your virtual event. Zoom is great. Everybody loves Zoom. Everybody knows how to use Zoom, but there is a world of virtual event platforms that you can actually use to get a little more return on your investment. So for sponsors, there are platforms where you can show, they can actually have virtual exhibits and interact directly with persons, right? Your attendees can be in networking lounge and have one-on-one video chat with each other, right? So reach out to someone like me, if you want, and try to determine what is the best platform. What is the best platform for you to deliver your virtual event? And all of that is going to be tied back into you understanding what your objectives are, who your audience is, what content you want to deliver, and lastly, what are you going to do to keep your audience engaged? You know, we have Q&A, so if anything there piqued your interest, you can let me know, and we'll be happy to answer these questions after. Thanks, Joanne.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tisha. And just for those who came in late, Tisha is an event manager and consultant. And what she just spoke about is trying to give us a definition of what is ready virtual. So based on what Tisha presented just now, virtual means any event where attendees are online, right? So you have your categories of webinar, live streams, and you have broadcasts as she defined. And in order to have a productive or successful session, three things or probably four things that you have to keep in mind, right? Be very clear on what your objective is, right? What you have to decide what you're going to do, what are you going to talk about. So you can't just come with your your camera and say, well, hey, I'm here, right? You have to know your audience, right? And it's very important to focus on your content. That is very important, right? You have to look at engagement. Engagement is key, because if it is you can't engage, then somebody's going to say, take off, put yourself on mute, take off their camera and go for a snack, go for a bathroom break, and even they may even come back. So you have to make sure that you have that engagement with your audience. The most important thing, just as much as having your agenda and having those ideas, you make sure that your equipment is good. Therefore, if you have a camera, make sure it's a good working camera. If it's on your laptop, your desktop, or your phone, if it is you have audio, make sure you have decent audio, good audio for your audience to hear. And most important, after all of that, a very good connection. It makes no sense having all these things and your connection is down. You must have a good connection, good bandwidth, in order to make sure that your audience stays with you throughout the whole event without having somebody freezing on you, right? And as Tisha goes back into reiterating, she says, you do not have to have boring content, right? So, I mean, I hope that everybody here got an idea of what exactly is a virtual event. And before I toss to our next speaker, I was supposed to say something, and I know that my vice president is going to have a cow if I don't. This is for my message for those who are not members of PRATT or the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Don't forget, you can sign up today. I mean, after this session and you're interested based on what you have heard so far and you want to continue with us on this journey, see here are some of the benefits of being a PRATT member. Access to valuable resources such as articles, workshops, webinars, such as this one we are in here, to be part of an experienced professional network. I mean, it's very helpful when you have people you are able to share information with, right? The opportunity to cultivate your own personal brand by joining the executive board or committee, right? And lastly, you will benefit from continuous learning with opportunities at discounted rates and offers. So while while you're listening to us today, mull that around in your head a little bit, right? And as well as if it is you have questions for our panelists today, don't forget to send your comments and questions via our Facebook chat, right? We are looking forward to hearing what you all have to say, what you're curious about, and we hope that we are able to answer them later on this evening. So for our next speaker, we have Colin Greaves, who is the head of public relations at Digicel. Colin is going to talk about building a brand, maintaining brand loyalty in a virtual world. I am sure during the carnival season, even though people said there was no carnival, we did have a carnival that Colin and his team were able to present some level of familiarity with the carnival spirit, right? And here today he's going to share his digital experience talking about customer engagement, brand awareness, challenges, and successes. So take it away, Colin.
Hi, Joanne. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening, rather. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, this is pretty exciting in the virtual world, and also to share the stage with some really great people. I mean, I've known Joanne for a long time. I've known Tisha for a very long time, and I've known Kenny. Hi, Kenny. I've known Kenny as well. And it's such a great thing in this virtual space. I mean, the good thing is that just how we're here now, engaging and having a conversation in the virtual space, it's the same way brands should have conversations in the virtual space with their, we like to throw the buzzwords in the PR world with their various publics, we love to use those type of jargon, right, Joanne? So the thing is that the virtual world has created so many opportunities that didn't exist before. It would have really leveled the playing field a lot more for especially brands who didn't feel like they may have been the most trendy or have a lot going for them in the past. The reality is that the virtual space basically caused a widespread leveling of the playing field. We all have to rely on the same things: a camera, whether it be a camera phone. So I deliberately am doing this presentation tonight from my cell phone, which people who are on the rehearsal Wednesday would know that and this is a cell phone. So and the reason why is that the average cell phone actually has a much better camera quality than your computer or than many other larger cameras that I use. So as Tisha would have mentioned, things like having a internet connection is being important as well. But seeing that the other opportunities that we have to explore using not just Facebook and Instagram, but so many other tools, Bit Messenger, WhatsApp, internal company SharePoints. When I want to go back a bit to this concept of publics, there's internal and external. Your internal, to a large extent, is just as valuable as your external. How you engage your employees and your internal members of staff, because a lot of times they become the brand advocates for the promotion of your external activities. So let's say you're working in a company, for instance, at Digicel, where we have 1,000 staff. It's an easy way to start to say that, if we get these 1,000 staff talking about the activity that we're going to do next, that's already, let's say, a couple hundred people who are going to tune in without us even spending a cent on an ad or any sort of PR activity, without a press release going out. As simple as a really well put together internal newsletter, or with great visuals. You know, as we all know, people don't like to read. So when we start with framing up what the event looks like and the virtual experiences, we have to make it as simple and as enticing as possible. We have to say, you know what, people like high quality visuals and these things, and let's start there and keep it rolling. Let's get them to share with their family and friends. And that's how we would get and start building into the external part of things, right? So I'm gonna wheel it back a bit. I want to jump on what Tisha was saying in terms of it really has to start with your objectives. You have to be very clear as a company. Why am I doing this? I like to use why for everything. I was one of those kids who just asked a whole bunch of questions that always started with why. Why are we doing this? Well, why? And if you keep asking whys and hows and whos, you get there. You know, you always talk about the various W's and the H's, right? So understanding why. Why are you doing this virtual event? Is it to raise your brand profile? Is it to raise awareness? Is it to communicate a particular thing about your brand? Is it to support your customer's journey at a point in time? Is it to deliver some sort of information or disseminate information in some sort of entertaining way that would actually make people care? And onward from that is, of course, what problem are you trying to solve? So the whys, of course, are directly related to the problem you're trying to solve. People aren't engaging with the brand. We have very low public interest in what we're doing. We don't get a lot of engagement, no likes, no shares, no comments, and when we post things on one, you know. And these are all problems that exist that you have to be very aware of. So of course it comes with you knowing yourself. So the KPIs are very important from the start, understanding why we're doing this and what is the desired outcome. The desired outcome is we want to boost the number of likes and followers on our page. We want to earn revenue, for instance. So let's say Kenny would talk a little bit more about that. But what's going to make people care? Why are people even going to tune in? And this is something that companies sometimes tend to miss out. So from a Digicel's perspective, we realized when COVID would have started, COVID-19, that a lot of people were suffering from anxiety and things like this because of the overconsumption of news content and stuff like that. So within, I think, a week or 2 weeks of the lockdown, we started these online virtual concerts. I saw Vonnet on the live tonight, and Vonnet Bigfoot was the first performer we had in this concert series. And Vonnet show, I mean, this was a new space for us. We never would have done a live. Got 49,000 viewers the night of the show. And the reality was it was an idea of understanding what problem we were trying to solve and utilizing these tools to the internet, performances, and in between there we would have been sending particular messages. You know, Digicel, there with you. Separately, we would have used the opportunity with having that large number of viewers to also communicate what the brand was doing to support TNT during COVID. So dial this to get free credits, or these sites have been zero rated, and not overly bombarding people with the information, but having it done in a very in a tasteful manner, and add at the top and at the bottom, and add midway through the concert, some little pop-ups in between, but not distracting from the overarching concept, which was to entertain people, to help them get through the anxiety. So onward from this, I want to talk a little bit about consistency as well. This works well, and in the Digicel experience, what worked well was consistency. That from the start of March last year till now, we have maintained having virtual concerts and events every week to every 2 or 3 weeks to constantly keep people engaged. Because playing football once every 2 or 3 months doesn't make you a footballer, you know? So if you really want to get out there and really be an engaging brand, you have to be an engaging brand. And something Tisha said that I really want to pull on as well is, do not create content or put things out there for the sake of creating something and putting it out there, because you're wasting money and you're wasting resources. So a lot of times we see companies and PR people always posting a video, putting this up, putting it up. But the reality is, one, who's going to care? Well, two, why do they care? And three, why is this even important for them to know or excite them, you know? So I want to jump into the idea of customer engagement. How do we do this? People are always wanting to know, what is in this for me? Is this some groundbreaking information that's going to change my life? A lot of times, no. Is this something that I can find utility from? A lot of times, no. Is this something that's going to be really entertaining that I'm going to enjoy? A lot of times, yes. And you just have to understand that part of it. Am I going to win a prize? So something that's really great for customer engagement is prizes and giveaways. People love giveaways. You know, have people guess who's going to be on your concert or your show or your virtual event. Have people jump into the mix and understand, you know, by participating, you can win something. We started giving away free credit to people who comment within our comment thread. Throughout your life, you know, use your comment thread to engage people, build a relationship with them. And after your virtual event, take the relationship to another level. Retarget these people for some kind of promotion, you know, have a conversation with them offline, have your customer care teams engage these people on the side. Something I also wanted to talk about was your brand voice, which in the Q&A segment, we could discuss this a little bit. Let me just fast track, because I know I'm running out of time, on the notion of some of the challenges that you're going to face. Technology is always going to be a challenge, regardless. I work in a tech company and technology is a challenge. Murphy loves technology. You know, get over it, get used to it, get familiar with it, Google how to do stuff, or find people who know how to do it. The answers are all out there. It takes time to plan and execute. You don't just jump into a virtual space today for tomorrow. You really have to do a lot of assessment in terms of why am I doing this? Who is it for? All of the things that I mentioned before. Convincing people, especially the powers that be in a lot of companies in terms of buying into this idea. You know, budgeting. Virtual can be free, like now we're in a free Zoom, or really, really well done virtual can be quite costly, which I'm sure Kenny can go into a little bit in terms of the camera crews and the animations and the graphics that go into it. So that's also a challenge that you would have. And the thing is, in this virtual space, the great thing is that people are very kind of forgiving. You know, we all are kind of, it's okay to get into it and not necessarily be as polished from the start, but it's also a great catalyst to build from there and keep jumping on the content. At Digicel, we noticed that people love local content. So we started engaging all sorts of local artisans and allowing them to use our various platforms of our apps, Go Loud, PlayGo, even our Facebook page to tell their stories, you know, get a little bit to know. Because right now, the storytellers are what's thriving online. If you wanted to do a podcast, this is the time to do it. If you wanted to do a video series, this is the time to do it. Because you're not competing with physical events, which a lot of times would have been your largest competitor. So onward from that, I just want to show you guys one quick video. It's going to take, I think, my last minute or piece of my last minute, Joanne. And it's just a way, we had a virtual staff town hall. And remember I was saying in terms of how you're going to engage people to make sure that the content is attention grabbing and keep them engaged and stuff. This was, I'm going to share it from this next system. This was a teaser that was done for a virtual town hall that we hosted, an internal virtual town hall at Digicel. And it was a teaser to get people to log on and basically kind of whet their appetite. So what's going to happen? So I'm going to share with you guys, and then I'll just wrap it up quickly with that, right? Hold on. This.
Mommy, the car not starting. God, what I could do?
Friday vibes. So as it's Friday, let's add some zing.
Situ, stop calling my phone.
Mommy, I don't know where I is.
That is your reboot.
All we speeding.
Mommy, I hear no noise. I think I'm going back in the car.
Take that, me mobile.
I'm so scared. Mommy, what to do? And stop.
Right. So that's just a teaser for a virtual town hall that we had. And you can see basically how using just some creativity in terms of how you tell your internal stories would have enticed the staff, and we would have gotten a really high turnout from the staff members on that virtual town hall. And you all can ask questions about it later and stuff. So Joanne, I think that's it. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Colin. And just to summarize what Colin says, the most important thing is make it simple. I think the KISS, keep it simple, stupid, works all the time, because it makes it simple and entice. You make your content and engagement as enticing as possible with that philosophy, because philosophy, right? But the most important thing you have to learn, according to Colin, is you have to understand why, to understanding why you are raising your brand profile. So you can't just come and, just like I said earlier, plops down in front of a screen and say, hey, here I am. There is a difference. You have to have a purpose, right? For particularly for brands, the most important thing, apart from making sure you generate great content that is engaging, is your KPIs, your key in the performance indices. What, how do that bring that return on investment that you have put out there, right? So we have to understand that. So and then you also have once you have started on that train of going online, the most important thing, just as important as the KPIs, is your consistency. Because if it is you're not consistent, then you would not see that correlation with your KPIs and customer engagement, right? You have to use that thread that you have established with your online or your virtual presence to kind of extend that relationship with your customers, your stakeholders, your publics, right? Technology will always be a problem, Colin says. We have to deal with it. Murphy loves technology. Colin, I love that so much. Because it's true, because anything can happen. I am knocking wood that nothing happens here today. But what I'm saying is that we always have to be prepared. And if it is you do not know the technology inside out, make sure you have a backup plan, which is either you have a tech guy on or a tech girl on standby, or you have somebody who's offline or offsite who would be able to provide assistance or have a backup, get some guidance, right? And the most important thing, plan. I think everything is important. So I keep on saying the most important thing, but these things are very integral in when you are presenting yourself online, right? So thank you so much, Colin, for your 10 minutes and a little bit. And we'll come back to Colin as well as Tisha when we do our Q&As. And our next speaker is no other than Kenny Phillips, CEO of WAC Radio. Kenny has been a force or a formidable presence on Facebook with his online shows, his streaming. And what he has been able to do is to discuss, to monetize his product. And that is why he is here with us today, to give us some insight as how he was able to do it from his perspective, right? So this will explore his experience with WackTV, audience engagement, overall, his overall experience, the platforms that he used, and the financial capacity and technology that he was able to, to use and engage in order to get WAC Radio, WAC TV, the success that it is online. So take it away, Kenny.
Wow, what an introduction. Good evening all, thank you for having me. You realize I tried to do a fancy set, not like Colin with a flowered shoot, but me and Colin and Tisha are gonna have a good time this evening. So I am Kenny Phillips. I am the CEO of WAC Radio, now stroke WAC TV. WAC Radio was started in 2004. We were given a community license. So I'm giving you the barely anything. We were given a community license, which meant 16 kilometers from your antenna. My antenna was on San Fernando Hill. I'm sure Tisha don't know where that is, but it was on San Fernando Hill. I will tease you only. And it's so that your reach was not supposed to pass Couva, 16 kilometers. So immediately we were at a disadvantage. So we started to stream. I wasn't the first radio station to stream. In fact, the first radio station to stream was Iowa George, because he was in Point Fortin. Iowa George and myself have a very close relationship. He was my first production as a arranger producer. So we go way back. In fact, we got our radio licenses at the same time. He started to stream from Point. The same person who started streaming him then hooked me up, so we were all streaming. He left Point and went to town, and I was in South, so I had to stream. And I started streaming and realized I can't cross cover, but I get calls on the phone from Iraq. So I realized this ain't making no sense. So we went streaming real hard, really, really aggressive. And we gathered after years of sending out local, we do total local and some Caribbean music. And as such, being total local, we don't get the big sponsors, right, Colin? We don't get the big sponsors. They don't see it. I like how you say that Digicel has seen local content. COVID is great. Anyhow, moving on. I'll trade shade whole evening, Tisha and Colin. So we started streaming, doing Calypso tents, doing Parang. Joanne could tell you, we would be at all the Parang events, wherever they are, and they used to be really far. So I've had my experiences in streaming from Brazil, from Rio Claro, from wherever. I should have been a tester for I should have been a tester for Digicel and B-Mobile because I went everywhere. I went everywhere and did everything. So I knew immediately what bandwidth was right, what bandwidth couldn't work. I used to stream for all the UNC Monday night meetings all through the country, and you go in a place and immediately start to say, there are no internet. And the Wi-Fi or the mobile box, So you run a wire across a football field into somebody's house and you pay them $100 for the night just to use it, just to make sure that your stream goes. So I've had all these experiences, so I understand that is a major thing. Quality and consistency is the name of the game. So in all the streaming that we've done, we gathered our international diaspora audience who's my WAC family, and it's huge. And they love local content. I mean, love local content. And I mean, they are more Trinbaconian than us here right now. We just get people quarreling in the YouTube box when they can't donate. My donation not going through. What's going on here? I'm trying to put a $10 here. It's not going through. What is I could do? That kind of attitude dictate. I want to pay. I want to support. And that is my people. And it has grown and grown and grown. So after Carnival last year, and I'm fast forwarding because my thing will already take the rest of the day. So after Carnival last year, there was nothing. With the lockdown, there was no industry. So I had to do something because advertising dry up like about 85 to 90%. What am I going to do? I have staff to pay, I have to do things. And one Sunday, we decided we always have a shootout on a Sunday, Mr. Desmond and myself. He play a song, I play a song, and people will call and say, tune boy, or people will call and chup. And we decided now, okay, if you want a tune boy, when you like the tune, contribute. If I play this song, this old Kpis song, you say, oh, God, I like that, contribute. And we made, in that 2 hours, we made 11,000 TT dollars. And this was like, bing, 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 bing. I said, if you could do this like this, if we really put entertainment to it, what will happen? We went to the Calypso Monarch, Terry Lyons, and that was the first concert in Chagonas by her manager's house. And the rest is history. She made $22,000 a day. And the only source of income at that time was the Fund Me TNT platform, which has its own channel now. And you contribute, they convert it immediately into TT dollars, so you're seeing what you get. She made $22,000. Since that time, we've gotten the B-Mobile, Colin here, the B-Mobile text platform, where you could text $5, $10, $20, and $50. I haven't been able to secure Digicel yet. Me and Colin go talk. And then we got a Cash App for the American people or the foreign people who can't do the Fund Me TNT. So we have now 3 sources of income. So the income generation is 3 sources wide. The only thing we don't have is a Digicel texting. But anyway, We're not going to digress till after. So, the people find a way to contribute. If you can't do any of those three, they come up the step here in the radio station and they bring their $100 in an envelope and say, this is for this one, or this is from some of the shows. My landlord brings a check for me. You bring a check for $5,000 and say, this is to all the shows. I supported all the shows. Things like that. People, let me tell you something. Before I want to close, because I want people to ask questions. We had a WAC party for Labor Day last year when there was no COVID, no nothing. And in the party, I never go to these parties. I never go because I don't like them party thing. I went to this one in New York, a backyard, and people were coming up to me and saying, boy, you don't know what you do to me, you know. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You saved my life. I'm like, how you mean? What WAC radio is doing saved my life. I said, okay, all right. He said, anyhow, I had this for you. And he just pushed it in my pocket and sticks it in my pocket. Right? Here me go there. I ain't check it. The party went on. When at the party, all the money collected at the party was given to me. When I reached home and counted the money, it was $4,500 US from the party, from my foreign listenership. And I realized it's a listenership or a demographic that the big companies, the big corporate people, the big public relations people don't really see. And it's that from 45 to 105. They are still there and they have buying power. They have their pensions, they have, they have ready money. In fact, they have to give the younger ones money to do things. So I say all that to say, I have tapped into my market, which is that age group, that demographic. That's why Tisha don't know, but that is our market. And I feel I prefer people to ask me questions than me rambling on, because I can ramble. So thank you, Ms. Briggs.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. So basically, the summary is that it's all about determination for Kenny, because I think that because of his love for the culture and being able to share the music, that he was able to make sure to pursue that line to ensure that he has that kind of engagement. And of course, with his determination, he realized a lot of things. One, the diaspora, whether they are in New York, whether they are in some part of the Middle East, that was his listenership. And he took advantage, good advantage, not bad advantage, good advantage of, of the fact that they listen, right? And they have been supporting him, right? So you have that. You're looking at the demographic, the age group. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't appreciate the present soca. But, when people are outside of Trinidad and Tobago, memory plays a lot, and, and reminiscing. So that is what Kenny has been able to provide for them, is that sense of home and that sense of memory of Trinidad. And that is what he has been able to do with WackTV. And that is probably one of the main reasons why he has been able to get so much support outside of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly that story he told of what happened to him in Brooklyn. So you understand how much that relationship is important, particularly for streaming, particularly for local content. You have to look for your demographic and you have to look for your people, right? And the other thing is that he was able to talk about the 3 platforms he has been able to get for monetization. He talked about FundMe TT, he talked about the Cash App, he talked about the B Mobile app, right? Negotiations between Colin and Mr. Phillips, that is out of my league. I will discuss, that's between both audience. I will not go into that, right? So that's basically what Kenny spoke about just now, right? So we are now open. This is an opportunity now to have some Q&As, and we have a couple of questions. Just give me 1 second to access them. The first question that we have is, I don't know who will answer this question. what tips or strategies can we employ to help sponsors buy into virtual events? Who wants to take that question?
Colin should take that.
I'll take that one.
I
Okay.
think that is let Colin start and I might jump in after.
Okay, so in a previous life, I was the communication, sponsorship, and events executive at Digicel. So sponsorships fell directly and solely under my remit, and then similarly now as head of public relations, to an extent, sponsorships also fall under me. So I will jump in here. Just repeat the question one more time, Joanne.
What tips or strategies can we employ to help sponsors buy into virtual events?
Okay, so let me start. One of the first reasons why a lot of sponsorship requests are denied is timing. Many people just wait too late for sponsorship requests. So I've been getting requests even up to this week for events that are within the next weekend or next 2 or 3 weekends. And the reality is that we're a company that plans several months in advance. So if we do not get a proposal for something 2-3 months in advance, it's really difficult for us to factor it into our overall planning. So that's one of the main things, the timing. Ideally, we would say 6 weeks minimum, so that we would be able to factor, really meet properly with you and allocate resources and support as needed. So that's one. Two, clearly understanding your demographic and the relationship that exists or does not exist with the demographic that the sponsor is looking into. So Kenny was very clear in terms of what his demographic is. At Digicel, we definitely, even though we want to say that we love all of TNT and we are there for all of TNT, the reality is that a lot of our products and services and virtual content tends to trend a lot more with younger people. I guess it may be one of those legacy brands versus the hot new kid on the block kind of thing. But a lot of the content that we put out there, especially when you see the ambassadors that we work with, their fans and stuff tend to be younger people. So understanding the audience profile. So similarly, along with that would be things that the company also cares about. So for instance, at Digicel, there's a Digicel Foundation, for instance, you would see that they would support certain types of community development projects and stuff like that, things that deal with special needs in particular. So understanding, companies always would put out what's in their interest, or what interests them, or what is within their brand guidelines for support. Sometimes we would get proposals of things that are just totally outside of what our brand supports or is interested in. Now the reality is that companies are just going to sponsor any and everything. So brand alignment is very important. And then the third thing is just understanding the quality production. So for instance, the timeliness of some things. If you say, for instance, you have a hot artist or a hot something that is about to drop now, and just the timeliness. So for instance, this period happening now, between the end of February into maybe June, July, jazz season. I've already engaged one at Bigfoot for a concert. We've already been talking to other people out there about jazz concerts and shows. Similarly, coming down to, we know October, November, December, Christmas content, January, February, very heavily on carnival content. Now, yes, local content will live and thrive through the entire year. So you will be seeing a lot of insertions like that. But you asked in terms of how are you going to get tips to really push your different projects to us. And those are some of the main tips, I would say. The timeliness, understanding the audience and the demographic, understanding how it fits into the company's overall objectives at a particular point in time of year and space.
Okay, Tisha, you have anything to add?
I think just to add everything Colin said, and then I want to add that particularly in the virtual space, so if we were doing a face-to-face event, you will start to write up, what the sponsor can get out of, or what the company can get out of the sponsorship. And we go into, logo this and banner placement here and a booth here and there, right? So there are sometimes, I don't want us to forget that we can still leverage some of those things in a virtual space. Again, going back to possibly the platform that you are doing the event on. Don't be afraid to put in things like, your same video on screens. Colin just did a share screen and showed us what he did. Again, going back to your content, right? How can the sponsor actively engage with the attendees. I think now even more than a face-to-face event, sponsors have a chance to literally be one-on-one with a greater percentage of attendees now than if you were in a face-to-face or a physical event, where you would have been banking on persons coming into your booth. And do you actually know how many persons visited your booth in a face-to-face? Right? Now you can actually count the ROI on that. Now you can actually have your sponsors can be in the chat and actively engaging and pique interest and have one-on-ones and demos and stuff like that in a virtual space. So I think in developing your sponsorship proposal, and we've spoken a lot through the entertainment drive because that's where these guys are, but I'm gonna go on the other side of it. You want to be able to identify to the sponsor what they can get out of it. And again, understanding, as Colin said, what is important for them. They want to know who the audience is, how they can reach their audience, and not only that, there's opportunity for engagement after the event is over. Because now you would have collected a whole ton of data in terms of who your audience was, who would have interacted with their brands during the event, and now they can follow up with these people after. Those are things you cannot leverage in a face-to-face event.
I was chomping at the bits to say something, yeah? And my question is, to that question, if you don't get this sponsorship, you don't have an event? Do you really need this sponsorship? Because I definitely don't get it, right? And this is, we almost hit in March, will be 1 year, you understand? And we have fed a lot of people. That's all I say, we've fed a lot of people. So my thing is, the major sponsor, all power. If I get that, I'll be happy. But if I don't get it, I'm going down the road. And I am raising my own funds. You understand? We can't wait. I can't be Nadia. I can't be Voice. I can't be, Kes. And a lot of us can't be that. So not because you're not that and you're Lord Joking Board or Lord Conhawks and you have a song, that means you have no value. I do Calypso tents here. I did Calypso Review 3 shows. I did Kaiso House 2 shows, Kaiso Caravan, Classic Russo, and even a kind of South tent. And they all, barring one, made enough money to pay everybody at least $800 for the night. You understand? And that is how I look at it. And if the sponsors come, they come. If they don't come, we do anything. You understand? But you have to set it up in such a way that you can make the money, right? I am the tout, like how Colin said yesterday, that they have to be the obnoxious one to create the chat or whatnot. I have to be the one wheeling the songs, saying, "Oh God, that's a big tune. Come again, come again." So you give the people a chance to donate. You understand? And you have a lot of tricks and things that I have learned to generate the pocket movement. Now you have to show the people how valuable what it is they're getting is. I have 2 cameramen with me now, and my crew is 3. And the 3 of us will give a man an encore. And until the man saying, you just get encore in this thing? You understand? But when and these guys are not Calypso men, they're young fellas. But when they hear the Calypso, like, wow, that's what you're singing? Nah, come back, encore. And I was amazed that they saw the value of it, of a Calypso. And so I'm saying, once you give a good product, people reach it. That's all I need to tell my partner, Colin.
So, Joanne and Kenny, thanks for bringing that up, right? Because that is something I always ask, especially like smaller clients who may come and the first thing they want to know is, say, they're going for sponsorship. And my question is always, so if you don't get sponsorship, the event not going to happen. And you're right, a lot of times people say that they can't afford it and they back off. And then my thing is, no, figure out a way to do the event without sponsorship. And if sponsorship comes, great. If not, you already created a product that you're able to sustain for yourself and you're not fully dependent. And that's when you actually know when they actually believe in their own event for themselves or their own product for themselves. The ones who they're looking for sponsorship is most times because they're just trying to make a quick dollar and keep it moving. So Thanks for bringing up that.
And just one really quick short point is just that on this, just to support this even further, is that guys have to remember that sponsorship from the brand perspective, we're not here to fund your event or your activity. That's philanthropy. We have a foundation that deals with that, and there are certain things that they fund because that's CSR. What we're here to do is to buy into the rights of being associated to whatever you're a part of, because it, again, hits our KPIs. It allows us to engage a particular audience and these things. So exactly what Kenny said and Tisha said is spot on in terms of they have many events that we would have jumped, hunted down those people to be like, hey, you're doing this, we've seen it, we want to be a part of it. Just simply because they would have started building an audience, and we're like, okay, yeah, that's a space we want to be in. So very valid point and spot on.
Colin, I wasn't going to pong here.
Nah, no pong, man.
The pong here. I have to. One of my people sent a message saying, you remember Digicel? We approached Digicel for the text platform, which we already had from the mobile, because a lot of the locals couldn't contribute, and Digicel wanted. Oh God, I really shouldn't pong here. What Digicel wanted was too high,
right,
and too ridiculous.
And I can just explain that very quickly.
So I can please. I really
the text to donate platforms aren't owned or run by us. It's a third-party vendor. Basically, they are our historic reference have shown that they've been extremely unsuccessful because people don't SMS anymore. So we advise people, just as how you've done Fund Me TNT and stuff, we advise people to use online platforms to actually protect them from the cost associated with the platform. We've seen major events in TNT with huge hundreds of thousands of dollars of budget promoting text to vote for this artist or text to donate here, and they've gotten less than 100 texts. And then when you now compare that to the cost of the third-party vendor that actually manages the service, a lot of times it's not worth it to the vendor. So many people will tell you that we've advised against that, and it's something that we're actually looking into to see how best we could come up with another solution of supporting events, because we understand that it is a vital platform or a vital tool, but when we have to pay a third party X, Y, or Z $100 US or $1,000 US to even activate the platform, sometimes people will even make that on the night on one night in question. So we actually have not done it for people to protect them from the cost. So, but don't worry, Kenny, there's some virtual stuff coming up that we will be creating, some new platforms that are a lot more easily accessible and would not have such cost associated with them.
For example, I need to some information. Like last year, before COVID, I did Panorama with Trinbago, etc., and I had to do 2 platforms to get finances in. One, to collect the money, which was Cleang, CLEENG, and 2, to host the stream, which was Dacast. And it really was clunky, but it worked. I gave to Trinbago after everything $5,000 US. Mind you, I was supposed to be streaming alone, but they gave the stream to somebody else. So, whatever. But we made some money. So this year, fast forward, we developed our own site, which it was guinea pig before that same night of the Panorama, and it's called tizik.com, which is a partner to Fund Me TNT, where you can actually now do a pay-per-view, watch it right there. The only criticism I have of it is that it's for young millennials like Tisha and yourself. And remember, my audience is 45 to 105. So sometimes they pay the money and they say, well, okay, once you pay the money, you see watch live. So they're expecting a code or they're expecting something and it's already ready to watch. So they will call us and say, I ain't get no code. And the thing just hit watch live. And sometimes people buy the thing and don't have the internet speed to watch the thing. So other than that, but we did pretty all right for our first time on our own platform, and we'll be restreaming it tomorrow night, Panorama, which was our repertoire kind of jam. So let's see.
All right, so we have lots of questions coming in. So I don't want to go like a fast fire and ask you questions. So we want to give people some space to speak. So we'll try to keep it as tight as possible. So based on the discussion we had just now about this discussion, the other question that came up is how do you put value on the virtual platform? How do you know it's successful? What are those KPIs that we would see? That indicate that here we had a good show, we had a good following. What are those indicators?
It depends on what you were trying to achieve when you decided to do it, John. I think that's why you say that's part of the, at least for me, that's part of the reason why you set objectives. So what is it? Were you trying to get 100 persons to attend? Okay, cool. And then you run the report at the end and you say you had 95. So then you might tell yourself it's a success. Were you trying to make 10,000, or in Kenny's case, $0, and you left the night with 11,000? I think then you would deem your event as a success. So it goes back to what were your objectives? What were you trying to do with the event in the first place? And then you measure that against the outcome. And I think that's how you will determine if your event was a success or not.
Yeah, and also some of the KPIs that people might want to look at as well would be of the obvious, the viewership, but also the engagement. How many comments was there? How many shares did we get? How many people tag their friends to be a part of it? And that's where we were talking earlier in terms of your brand engaging with people. That's part of the engagement. When your virtual event is going on, your brand needs to be in the chat, encouraging people, hey, tag a friend, bring people on board, tell friends we live, that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, what you also can measure is the sentiments in the comments. So are these comments positive? Are they negative? What type of language is being used? Are people detractors or promoters? Are they using positive language to promote what we've done? And then even after that, what type of external or post-event PR did we get? Was there a review in the newspaper about it? Did people talk about it or tag us online, thanking us?
To get their feedback. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so they have so many KPIs so far. Like what 6 or 7 we've used already. So they have so many things, and sometimes we kind of take it for granted. But these things are now all very valuable in the virtual space, right?
Yeah.
I put up a share screen there for Tisha.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I did for you. You know I did for you. You know that.
Okay.
So like this was Baron and Sugarloaf to see the concert. I think we had like 40 something thousand viewers, and this was just viewership on Facebook. But what I have realized is that, well, Colin and Tisha are the Instagram, Facebook generation, and I realized that the Instagram and Facebook, Instagram particularly, don't contribute, right? YouTube contributes. And another way of collecting finances from the collections, you can do a YouTube stream with a private link, and only when you pay, you get a code to open the private. Your email is the code to open that private link. So that's one way, because YouTube is a kind of universal, everybody could do a YouTube something. You know what I mean? So these are like, and this other one is Panorama Medium Band. I don't know what's the amount there. Show in Winchester Live. I think he had a fair amount as well. Comments. And this is Temperature of the Band. And this is TuneIn Radio. And this had some, and this is TuneIn Radio amounts and viewership, etc. And this is YouTube, etc., etc. And this is my app, Wack app, where we have, Wack app is pretty cool. I think that is it. I could stop.
All right, great. So, Colin, we have a question for you. Some companies are more social media savvy and aware than others. How do you win over leaders who may be very social media and tech/comms averse? In other words, they're afraid of technology, they don't want to go there. How do you bring them across to the other side?
Well, one, to me, you start with the facts and the data. Like the world is living on the world is social right now, virtually. Everyone thrives on social and digital media. People spend more times on there. There are so many studies out there. People spend more times on their smartphone than they spend talking to the person next to them. People live on all of these various social media platforms. So the reality is that if your brand is not there in an engaging or an active way, then are you really getting the best? Are you really communicating best? As we know, out of all of the various tools available to us, there's always the print and the traditional and or the old school, as they call it now, and the out of home stuff. But the reality is most people are right here in this virtual space. How many billions of people around the world on Facebook, and similarly locally, and you see the difference now with the engagement rates and statistics on even online. Remember, even the news sites online from all of the media houses are there. You see them posting their articles, the same articles that are in the print. They post on social media and then they get the engagement and they get people to share it. And that's how they now sell advertising, where some of them even have a paywall where you can't even read certain newspapers, articles. You see a little blurb.
Until you subscribe, yes.
Yeah, a little blurb or snippet. So to me, if argument is like, are we really trying to engage people in a current manner of putting ourselves or our brand where they are and where they live, and they live on digital?
Yeah, but I'm thinking too of like the executives in this case, because like if it is they have a brand that particularly in COVID times, and they don't see the need for the technology to share their message, what would you tell somebody like that? How do
I
you
think
how do you get them across to the other side and say, listen, sir, this is not working. Half the population not reading papers. How are we going to get our message across? How do you
Joanne, I can give you my analogy for that. Because I have a partner like that. And I say, boss man, you trying to tie a rope around the world and stop it from turning. But it will drag you on your bottom around and around. So you better get with it. You understand? Tell them that, because they need to.
Colin, you can say that to our boss man. Can you?
Oh, he can't. I can.
I mean, we have a pretty, people speak pretty openly at Digicel. But I guess go back to the reality of you have to separate what's good for the business and what's good for yourself. So sometimes we have to all do things that we're uncomfortable with, simply because. So I was not a techie person before. I was almost afraid of using a lot of these virtual platforms and understanding digital analytics and these things. But the reality is that instead of guessing, I think Tisha mentioned it, these things allow you a straight shot into people's lives, you can see exactly who is viewing from what part of this country, what time they logged on, how long they stayed on for, at what point they dropped off, and that way you can determine, okay, this was interesting to this segmentation of people. Like with that type of data, I mean, remember, it's all about collecting data, and data is what would allow your business to make even better strategic decisions. So I just think, take it away from the emotion and look at it as a fact. The facts are I can give you data from people's social media consumption that you could never get from any of your other touch points.
Which is true.
Dropped my Colin.
Yeah, that's so true. Tisha, do you want to add something to that?
No, I think that is it. You in order to get those who are still averse to it, you have to show them the data. And unfortunately, the question now is, how do you get data on something that you've never done, right? So that might be the next question. If they're not giving you the opportunity to do the event, to show them the data, how do you find the data? And I think what we also need to step away from is thinking that we are the only person trying to do it. Reach out to someone who's done it before and ask them to share the information. You can share data incognito without saying who the client is and that kind of stuff. So this is where you have to, again, we have to get creative and network and stuff like that.
Oh, and Tisha, that point is important as well as even surveys. So people would have seen this. Digicel does a lot of surveys. We are always trying to find out what is in people's minds. Things where people, again, why do people participate in these surveys? Because they win something. Win some sort of a hamper, a free bag, a branded item, some incentive. But we are always running surveys to find out what people's feedback are at multiple touch points. And that feedback feeds into whether or not we need to do a concert, a webinar, a seminar, or whoever.
Okay.
So drop a survey in advance and get the information and present it to your bosses and be like, look, our customers, our clients, our audience want it. This is what we have to do. Yep.
Good. Right. So this goes into another thing, because we were talking about tradition just now, about how do you convince people to come to the other side, right? When it coming to virtual events, is there a costing difference between when you're producing a virtual event as opposed to doing an in-person event, like a face-to-face engagement? Speaking from experience, Tisha, Colin, and Kenny, what cost factors are there between, or differences between the two?
I feel like Tisha, I'm going to start and trade for you. So in my initial start of this presentation, I mentioned that virtual can be free. Remember I mentioned that virtual
Yes.
can be free. But
Yes.
very good virtual can be extremely expensive.
Yes.
From production teams, scripting, directing, proper lighting, sound, audio. Even after filming a virtual concert, we then drop out the audio out of the concert, send it to a studio to have it remastered and re-edited and balance back all the audio, auto-tune, whichever artist needs to be auto-tuned, then drop that audio back into that's a different level of production. So we've done from free to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on a virtual event.
Yeah.
So Tisha, over to you. Kenny?
No, so okay. Let me shut up because I know where Kenny going.
Boy, me. Go ahead.
Enough, I always say virtual doesn't mean free to the audience, right? Well, sorry, virtual doesn't mean free in terms of getting it done. Colin, even in those free shows you all did, there was some kind of cost involved, right? So there is always going to be a cost to the production. If you choose to make it free to your audience, that's entirely up to you, right? My thing is, I don't like seeing a great production that ends up going on for free, because I think then people don't appreciate the value of what it takes. And then when we're really ready to monetize this thing, they will be like, yeah, but I had watched something like that for free. How am I actually going to pay for it, right? So virtual doesn't necessarily mean free. There is a lot. I have submitted quotes to clients and they'll be like, what? And I'm like, yeah. For the same reasons that Colin said, when you're going high quality in terms of video and audio, and then you're set, what is going to happen behind? You still have to have some kind of setup if depending on the nature of what you're doing. All these things of course. So yes, you don't have to pay for food and all these other things, but you still, if you have speakers, if you're charging, you still have to pay them, because once you're charging someone to attend an event, you have to pay the people that are delivering the content to you. So virtual is not always free. So yes, there is a cost. And just as you would have done for a face-to-face event, develop a budget, see what is involved. If you can fund it yourself, great. If not, that's when you decide if you need to get additional support or if you need to dumb down on what it is you're trying to do. Kenny.
Well, I don't know where to go after these two. Here's what happened. What we've tried to do is keep the cost as down as possible. What I have developed is, this is my conference room that I'm in right now. I have turned the conference room into a space, a stage. I have spent money on lights. I already had a PA system. I did over the floor. I painted the roof black. I did all kind of thing. I have people coming and change sets in the back, etc., etc. So it is expensive. But when I throw a concept out for free, I say, hey, this is free for you. Or we ask, if you enjoy the experience, you contribute. If we bring you some enjoyment, we would like for you to bring us some enjoyment. And it could be anything. We're not saying, you would have had to pay $250, $300, $500 to come to a show like this. We say, you just contribute what you can. What I have found is that if I do pay-per-view, I get 100, 200 people paying. If I do it free, I get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 40,000 people watching. And my ask then for your contributions outweighs the pay-per-view. That's what I have found, where I could get over 200 contributions by over 300 donations via text, by over 100 and something cash app donations. So like there were concerts that, like we did Ronnie versus Super, that broke the mold. You understand? In that little space of 2 hours, they made $40,000 on Funny TNT. And that's one income stream. There was the Baron, there was the Terry, there was assorted concerts that just did well. We have bands that do well. And we tell them, bring your audience. Don't depend on my audience only, bring your audience. So that, you have your supporters, tell your supporters, tell your friends, and come. So we've been widening our net all the time. So yes, it is cheaper here because the stage is already set. All you do is to bring your talent and probably a backdrop, and you decorate your place, like Crackers and Cheese with Stacey Sobers, or Terry Lyons Calypso Fest. Or we've had you know, we've done 150 shows. So we have a little experience in it, and we kind of know how to work it. Right, Tisha?
Okay, so we have a next question based on that. We're talking about measurements. We were talking about post-event views and comments considered when measuring the success of a virtual event.
Mm-hmm.
So
Go ahead now, Leah.
anybody?
Again, I think I was actually now typing a response to that. I think it goes back to what your objective is, or your objective were. Not everybody puts out content and wanted to consume after, so they have a very they do a broadcast for whether it's a 1 hour, 2 hour show, and then the feed is not available after. If it's content that you want persons to consume after, then you leave it up, and then of course your views post the actual live stream or broadcast will count as a measure of success for you. So it depends again on what it is you are trying to achieve. You know, so we have seen our artists do shows over Carnival and they left it up, right? Some of them might have been like, no, I'm going live, and when the show is over, the content is no longer available, right? So it depends on what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and if views and people consuming the content is important for you, then you leave it up, and by all means, yes, views after the event will count as a success factor.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask a question, Colin, before I know you jump in. So if I have an event, like this event right now, and I put Digicel logo on it, is it valuable for you so people continually just coming to see it for free? When you reach 100,000 views, when you reach 300,000 views, is it valuable to you?
Of course, our brand resonance is valuable. I mean, in terms of the totem pole of how things rank, our logo and stuff, yes, because you want the brand recall and stuff. But we look for the more engaging part, so people actually interacting with our brand. So that's why a lot of things that we sponsor are hosted on our pages or our digital platforms, our various apps and stuff. But in addition to what Tisha was saying, is that in terms of, let's say, for instance, using an event to raise awareness. Your company might have a particular cause that you're passionate about, or a new product or service that you want to bring to the market. And the reality is that nobody really cares except the people who would have signed off on it. Because sometimes we have to be real about that as well. That plenty of things that excite us internally, nobody else cares about. And sometimes when we accept that is when we then develop all of the fringe things to make it interesting. So, for instance, using grand announcement, something just happened with your company. If you put out a press release, would people care? They might see it and browse over it. Would they engage with it further? Not really. Would they really share it? It might be that interesting. However, if you build that into, let's say, a concert, for instance, where there's an underlying theme in the concert, different artists in between use the opportunity to talk about it. You have a 1 minute or a 30-second ad inserted somewhere in there that mentions it. Or if it's a particular cause and people know that, okay, this is the event and we donate to this cause and everybody's wearing pink or blue or whatever is the case, like the resonance from that, you can measure that. Like you can measure after, you can poll people, you can check to see what's whether that PR works, whether or not there's a mass level of awareness of the brand or the activity or the piece. And that's one of the key things where views, comments, and shares has real value in terms of actually measuring the awareness. You know, poll people, ask customer surveys, send out stuff to see whether or not customers were aware, and also finding out where they got the information from. So once upon a time, we used to say, how did you hear about this? Radio, TV, press, billboard. Now is Facebook Live, Instagram concert. These things all now included as well.
Okay, great. So we have 2 more questions before we wrap up. One of them, I don't know who will take it. Most probably, this sounds like a Tisha question. I do a lot of presentations for my job. How can I improve my skills? Well, this could be a Colin answer too. Or Colin and Tisha combo.
Yeah,
Good luck, Tish.
I think if it's, my thing is always right now with speakers, what can you do to engage your audience virtually? So you don't want to be talking for 20 minutes and you're not sure if people, relate and understanding. So you might go on a live and you try to interject if it's every 10 minutes or so. Let me know if this makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you have questions. Now Zoom and all realizing what's going on. Zoom has reactions, right? So you want to get people engaged and actively participating in it and not just be a one-stop talk shop. If you have the opportunity to actually get people on live with you, to engage with them and interact with them, try to encourage that as much as you possibly can. Use aids. I am tired of PowerPoint just as I'm tired of Zoom, but how can you make what can you do to make it interesting, right? But yes, we're sharing and the slides are moving, but I mean, what can you put on the slides? Use video, use music, find some ways to appeal to people's emotions, drop a comedy, something in between. Like, we're all on a screen right now and it's hard. So the more human you can be, the more engaging you can be, the more you can actively have me participating, is the more you're gonna get that reaction.
Yeah, I think it's a question of engagement and how do you keep people, glued to their screen,
And know your audience,
and know your audience too, because
Yeah.
you know that you could drop in a humorous slide in between, and break the ice. That works a lot. It works a lot.
But Joanne, I know you didn't ask me about this one, but it's right in my wheelhouse.
My apologies.
It's in my wheelhouse. Like today, I told a ministry person that instead of you're going to do a workshop in Moruga, and then you're going to do the same workshop in Cantaro, and you're going to do the same workshop in Diego Martin, you film the workshop, have the person come online, look at it, and question the teacher on spot. We do that. You understand? Sometimes people come here and film stuff and they present it online. That kind of thing. You do a whole video presentation instead of physically going.
So is it then the Kenny, is that when you film and it's streamed, is it that the organizers are on standby to answer questions?
That is how it's supposed to be, yeah.
Okay.
So but this is the teaching. This is the teaching, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to add, Joanne, something that we did internally that worked really well in terms of our internal public. So the same PowerPoint presentations, the town hall trailer that I showed you all before. That event was really interesting because it was a 2-hour-long staff event, and we know that people hate those. However, what we did was we formatted it just like a regular event. There were entertainment breaks. So we pulled the clips of stuff that we recorded from before with our brand ambassadors and stuff and had those inserted into, after every 2 speakers, there was a performance basically that people look forward to. Along with that, we would have used other interesting people or members of staff to be included in the presentation. So we pre-filmed some of the presentation. So instead of, we pulled extracted the data from the PowerPoints and we created a script around it and we pre-filmed it by having members of staff be a part of the process, as well as some of the ambassadors. So we took Pretty and put him up on a ladder like he's a technician. We put Nessa Preppy in the call center. We had Nadia Batson work at the business desk. Voice was in Trend and Loop. And what they would have done was we used these different faces to deliver reports. The same content that would have been written into a speech or a PowerPoint, but by using them, as well as even some of the regular members of staff, the receptionist delivered something. Like, we just had people throughout the business being seen and not just the one boring person present a PowerPoint.
How to be creative, yeah.
Right, and as you all mentioned, insert a little comedy clip. You have the internet at your disposal now. Insert a performance from somebody, film somebody taping something.
Something for Tisha. What we did this Christmas gone, we did an ad for virtual Christmas parties, so that any company, any big time company like Digicel, could have their virtual Christmas party from here, streamed from here. Like we had Los Alumnos de San Juan here about 3 times for 3 different Christmas parties. So they perform here through Teams, Zoom, whichever way they have it in their place.
Yeah.
We send that performance to the office. So the people were gathered by wherever, and the performances were here. They had their own hosts. They asked questions. It was NGC or whoever. And we did it. It was an idea, my wife idea, and we ran with it. We got 3 different companies to take up on it. In fact, one of the concerts got cancelled because of the shark that ate the fiber. You remember? This ate the Digicel fiber. Yeah. That's me and Colin. That's me and Colin. Right.
Okay, good. So we're coming down to our final question. Colin, this goes back to the town hall, the staff town hall that you were talking about. So the person has asked, how long was the town hall? Were you able to determine how many staff members tuned in and what percentage of the staff tuned in? And would you call the event a success? And if so, why? Because it explained just now how there was the engagement. But based on, even though you have all the good content, would you consider the town hall a success as well as the questions that I just asked?
Yeah. So one, the town hall was extremely successful. It actually surprised a lot of the feedback, because of course we poll and survey everybody after everything. That's something. Everything happens in Digicel. You got a poll after. Even sometimes if you use your phone for too long, we will send you a SMS actually to rate the service. So feedback is very important. So it actually exceeded most people's expectations because, of course, many people came online expecting a boring town hall, which is the presentation after presentation, PowerPoint after PowerPoint. That town hall was actually pretty long. It was about 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And the reason why was that it was a lot of information. But because of how it was structured, the staff didn't even realize, people thought it was a lot shorter than it was. It hit a lot of the objectives in terms of staff engagement. Our town halls are compulsory activities, so everybody is mandatory. So we use Microsoft Teams. And for stuff like that, we would use it as a Teams Live. So people just can't unmute themselves and stuff like that. But in between there, of course, we would have seen a large percentage, I can't remember off the top of my head in terms of what the participation rate was. But out of the people that we're supposed to attend, between 95 and 100% of them would have attended. It delivered its objectives of keeping people engaged and entertained, of delivering the information that people needed to know. And how we know this is that after the town hall and in the weeks following, we would then, have conversations with the staff and find out who, you would ask particular questions of just to kind of gauge what information people took away from it. And then we realized that it achieved its objective. It was really, a new way even for us. It was something new because this would have been an annual staff rally that we tend to have. So normally we have an all-staff physical staff rally where we have performances and all of these things. And anybody who's ever worked at Digicel knows that we call them business updates. Our business update usually is a riot. People have a whale of a time at the end, right? Of course, with COVID-19, we kept pushing it back month after month after month until we decided to do it virtually. And because of that, we had to figure out, it was really important about keeping people engaged. So still hire that entertainer, guys. Still pre-record that performance and insert it as a clip. Still pre-record your presentations. Animate your slides, but not only boring. Sometimes we think you press next and it comes up on a transition and you're like, success. Like, you unfortunately, you need to push the envelope a little bit in that regard. Animate things, present information in different ways. Now we all are fed up of seeing charts and graphs and people speaking. So you now have to figure out, how am I going to take this same boring content and give it life, and don't be afraid, people will still get the message out of it. And there are countless ways. So on that staff town hall thing, and also last point, it takes a while to plan all of this. We took 2 months to plan that staff town hall because you still have to create your PowerPoints and the presentations and understand the information that needs to be presented, and then figure out the best way to present all of that, then actually do all the prep work, the pre-film and all of that stuff, then edit it together, then your range of rehearsals with all the different speakers. And the same thing even for this PRATT Chat today, having people log in days in advance, run the speaker test, have them share their screen, go through the entire thing, when does somebody speak, when do they not speak, etc. So the pre-planning stages take a lot of time as well.
All right, great. And I think at this juncture, we can say that we are wrapping up now. I would like to thank Kenny, Tisha, Colin for joining us. And before we leave, I just want to give a summary of what we talked about today, what is really virtual and how you can be successful in presenting a virtual presentation. It requires a couple of things. First thing, you have to find out what is your why. What is the reason why are you presenting this online, right? You have to have an objective, right? We have been saying it over and over for the past hour and a half that you have to have an objective. What is your demographic? Who are you targeting your message to, right? And then you have to talk about planning. You have to have an idea of what you are going to present. According to Tisha, we're tired of the same old PowerPoint. How creative can we be in our presentations to engage our publics, right? And the most important thing, or just as important, is consistency. How do you, after you have your first virtual event, how do you continue to engage with your publics or your people or your stakeholders? I mean, your stakeholders could be your internals, your staff, external, could be your clients, right? It could be the people that you interact with on a daily basis. So with that, we would like to say thanks everybody for attending our first PRATT Chat for 2021. On behalf of the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us, and please have a wonderful evening. Bye for now. We'll be back soon, for sure. We're going to be consistent. Bye.